Welcome, everybody. Here we are once again, another episode of Rubbin's Racing. I am your host, Mr. CJ Sports. With me in the studio today, I got with me my co-host, as always, Steve Big Sweat Billmyer. How you doing tonight, Steve?
Oh, I'm doing great, Good race yesterday, huh?
Oh, my goodness. And, you said there was plenty to talk about before we jumped on here, and, there was so much I wanted to say, but then again, there's so much I wanted to wait until he was actually on the air to be able to get, I guess, the first reaction in the first go around. I'd hate for us to fabricate the responses and the reactions we had, but I don't know. I don't see how at this point anybody cannot be 100% on board with the product that NASCAR has put in front of us, especially these last 4 weeks. To go into this season and 4 races in, we've already had the closest finish in Daytona 500 history for the Sprint Cup Series, and now the closest finish in Phoenix history for the Sprint Cup Series. I don't know how it gets any better than this.
I don't understand how people can say that the low downforce package is not the right way to go and doesn't work. I think it's shown in the first 4 races that it does create better racing and really makes the show a lot more interesting, really, because there's a lot more going on than there was before.
Oh no, and Steve accidentally hung up on me. Oh goodness. Dropped his call. Somebody dropped the call. I don't know if it was me or him. Hopefully he'll call back in 1 second. Excuse me. Hopefully he'll realize he's not in the studio no more. While we're doing that, while I wait for him to call back in real quick, make sure you guys check out the 110 Nation Sports Show. We got that going on at 9 o'clock tonight, about an hour after this show ends. I'm looking forward to talk about all sports tonight. Looking forward to a great evening. Don't forget you can catch the 110 Nation Sports Show Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Racing with Big Sweat 9 o'clock p.m. Thursday nights. Also, you can check out the Dirt Talk Hour, 9 p.m.s on Sunday. And then, of course, we got the Happy Hour Garage that we get in on Saturdays about noon. So make sure you guys check those out. A lot of great shows going on here at the 110 Nation. Also, you can check us out on Twitter. You can check me out at CJ Sports 1. You can check out the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. Check us out on Facebook, my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports, the 110 Nation fan page, 110 Nation Sports. There you go. He's called back into the studio. I don't know who lost who, but I'm glad to have you back. You were talking about the how people could complain about the low down forces where we lost you at.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing for NASCAR, and judging by how the first 4 races have gone, I think it's evident that it was the way to go.
I agree, and I'm still confused as the police go by here. A rather warm day here in North Carolina, so the windows are up today, but it was great today. But it kills me because, there's been different packages and different rules that, until we got the big picture, I understood there being disgruntled fans, but there's not been a decision, I don't think, this year that I have not agreed with outside of maybe the mishap with Martin Truex getting, penalized for the roof flap versus Chase Elliott. That whole scenario, which, that's still minor, and that, it's all about timing on that one. But to still see, I don't know. I just don't understand it, because you still see fans on Facebook. I just can't watch this, that, and the other. And I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat as, once again, we had 2 cars beating and banging back to the start-finish line. And, even though those were the 2 closest finish, if I'm not mistaken, Vegas or Atlanta, one or the other, the second race, I believe they were beating and banging as they came back to the stripe as well. So I don't know. If this is the product we're going to see all year long, I am definitely going to. I'm definitely going to probably age a lot this year because the excitement and the nervousness and everything else that goes with the way the first four races have gone. It's been phenomenal for me, and I hope that we get to see another 32 races like we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think NASCAR has accomplished what they set out to do. The race yesterday, you had Beaton and Bain on the last lap coming to the checkers. You had some excitement during the race, trying to see who was going to be the next driver to melt a bead in his right front tire, blow the tire out, and see what happens. It puts pit strategy into the mix. I mean, it's like you said, it's everything you want.
Now, talking about the melting the tire issue that they had yesterday, and you know it came about every 55 laps. A green lap is when it got to the point that things started melting and things started coming apart. Is this a product of the new downforce package and things that these teams got to adjust, or is just happened to be a isolated thing this weekend? Well, what caused this to happen, and is it a concern for these teams?
Well, the reason this happens is the brake assembly, the rotor, and the caliper are tucked inside the rear side of the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So the heat's contained inside that rim above the brake assembly. And what it does is the tire bead itself, for those that don't know, is the part of the tire that mounts against the rim and holds the tire on. And that bead is made with steel and rubber. So you start generating heat, and the steel in the bead holds the heat, which makes it hotter. The fact that you've got the brake assembly tucked in behind the wheel where there's not much air circulating to draw it out, that contributes to the heat. Teams will usually run 2 fresh air ducts to the center of the rim, the center of the brake rotor, where the vanes built into the center of the rotor pulls that air up through the vanes, but then it's trapped inside the wheel, so it really hurts how much that cold air will cool it. So, those things factor together, plus the fact that on a flat track like Phoenix, and you can probably look for this at Martinsville, on a flat track you don't have any banking to hold the car down. So the right side tires are doing more work than usual, trying to gain grip and hold the car down, and all of that together is, what causes that bead to melt. Some teams I know you're allowed to run 3 fresh air ducts to each wheel. So they'll run 2 hoses into the center to cool the brakes, and then the 3rd hose will be aimed at the tire itself to try to cool that sidewall and bead down some. So there's a lot going on, but that's what contributed to what happened yesterday. And evidently it takes about 50 laps at Phoenix to heat one up enough where it'll start to melt down. What surprised me was Brad Keselowski melted the bead in the right rear. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you do that other than being very loose. So, that was surprising to me, but I think the right front issue for now is going to be a problem at the flat tracks, and I'm sure Goodyear will jump on it and try to fix that problem.
How tough is it for a team when, their pit window was, I want to say, like 75, 80 laps or something in that ballpark figure, if I remember correctly. But you knew that there was a possibility of a tire issue anywhere around lap 55 and on. How tough is it for these teams to, because once they made it to 55, they went until somebody either had a tire issue or I think eventually they ran. I don't know if they ever did do a full gas run. I can't remember, but
I don't.
yeah. So how hard is it for teams to take that, in the back of their mind, knowing there's a possibility you could be that one that brings out the caution, but nobody wants to be that team to jump it, go in early because everybody wants to get the most out of their fuel mileage, especially because that someone else out there is probably going to cause that caution. You don't want to get put behind. How difficult is that to be out there and not be on your mind, not knowing the next turn you make? Because we watched, I think Stenhouse was one of them real hard, and I think I missed the other one. I think that I had something going on. I missed the first two, if I'm not mistaken. I happened to be out of the room at the same time both those happened. I remember Stenhouse's hit the wall. I can't remember the other ones, but those are hard hits to the wall, and so being a crew chief and being a driver, how hard is that to know mentally at any point you could be that one and that you got to stay out there until either the caution comes out or it rotates into the actual pit window that you're supposed to be pitting on?
It's kind of a hope and pray situation where you hope it doesn't happen to you, but you definitely start worrying about it after 50 laps. And as a crew chief, you're constantly changing your strategy and everything. One of the strategies they use is caution comes out, you automatically think this is the last caution we're going to get this race. And you plan on that, and then the caution comes out, you have to adapt your pit strategy again. And I'm sure there was a lot of radio chatter from the crew chiefs and spotters, telling their driver, take it easy, don't burn your right front up, be careful. And when you come up on a car you want to pass or you're going to lap, you pretty much got to do it on the inside, because on the outside it's just going to make turning the car that much more difficult. It's a big deal. It's hard to... It's kind of bad when you know something unexpected is going to happen. You just don't know who it's going to happen to.
Mm-hmm.
So you cross your fingers and you talk to your driver and hope you make it to the next caution. Hope that it's not you.
No, talking about strategy, and this goes for a lot of races. Larry Mack, he throws out a lot of useful information. And I think that he's the one that does it every race. I know he did this weekend, and I know most weekends I remember he's the one that throws his fact out. But he always does race trends, and we learn, what that track like Phoenix. I want to say that the race trend was the last caution, is what they had trended previously, and then obviously this one happened to be a later, caution and restart as they had the overtime. How much do crew chiefs and drivers use that information and take that into consideration when we have that kind of information?
It's become a pretty important point to keep in your mind. The trends tell you what's happened to your car the race before. Going back to last November, I believe, was the last Phoenix race.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got an idea of how the race is going to go, and that's a pretty important deal. How many times you have cautions, what lap they occur toward the end of the race. So it's just as important to know that is to know, knowing what your setup is and everything. It's all part of the deal. And now that everybody's on laptops, it's a lot easier to record and store that information. So crew chiefs are going to use everything they can, and that's just another tool in the race.
I thought this was interesting. I saw this yesterday. We saw Joey Logano come down with like 9 laps to go to get fuel. How was this the only team that's that far off? I don't think anybody else even came for a late fuel stop, if I remember correctly. I think everybody else, managed to coast their way and save enough fuel to even make it through the overtime. But Logano was like way short. How was this even possible? And how did this team get so far out of sync when it came to the fuel that it cost? Because that cost them a lot.
I don't remember what Larry Mack said about it. We're on the subject. Larry Mack is an underused person at Fox. He needs to be more involved because he does get good information. I don't remember him saying why they had to pit early. I would guess they didn't get a full load of fuel the pit stop before. So that made them shorter on fuel than the other cars. But yeah, it was a miscalculation one way or the other, and it cost them.
Oh, most definitely. And it really surprised me because, especially Logano and the Penske team, that Penske team is kind of the one of the top 4 teams in NASCAR, and to see one of their drivers be that far off compared to everybody else when it came to the fuel, that really shocked me. And another driver that shocked me when it came to the whole pit stops was Kyle Busch. Now, obviously, he had time to recover and ended up finishing 4th, but he had an unusual mistake, not only for himself, but the whole team, and I think how they kind of conducted everything. I mean, obviously, Kyle Busch sliding in the way he did and getting close to the wall and eventually kind of slipping over that line, cost that team, a lot, and that pit crew obviously had to adjust to, the whole circumstance, but, themselves, I think that because of Kyle Busch throwing them out of sync, kind of had everybody kind of disarrayed and kind of jumbled around like their heads, chicken with heads cut off at this point. How hard is it to kind of keep your composure when your driver comes in and your crew is kind of thrown, a curveball when it comes to something that's usually pretty routine, especially with a team like Kyle Busch?
Yeah, you come off pit road and you're driving, your adrenaline's up, everything, and Kyle come into his pit and he slid in and stopped right at the line. He thought he was over the line and was going to put it in reverse and back up to get his pit box. The gear shifter, you have to push down on the shaft itself to get it to move over to reverse, and if you don't press it down or press it down enough, it's going to go right back into first gear, and that's what happened. He went to back up, thought he had it in reverse, and when he let the clutch out, he realized, he was still in first, and then he had to stop and back up. So that's killing time. And then the way he came in and the way he backed up, he ended up too close to the wall, so the jack man couldn't get a full stroke on the jack to lift the car up, and that slowed him down again. Just a perfect storm of circumstances that really hurt him on that pit stop. But it's not something you can really control, especially in that situation, and it was good that Kyle came back from that and still had a good finish.
Now, while watching the race, they talked about Richard Petty Motorsports and the family atmosphere that they have there. And one, I've never really been a big Eric Amarillo fan. It's not that I have anything against him. I just feel that you kind of get what you pay for when you come to drivers, and obviously that also includes what you can pay. You pay what you get for, as also kind of what kind of a budget team you are. If you're Rick Hendrick, you got the money, so therefore you got all the nice expensive toys to play with, and you get the most expensive drivers, and so. That's kind of how I look at Richard Petty Motorsports. They pay kind of an average driver, maybe a little bit better than average driver, and you kind of get a little bit about average to above average performances. But over the last couple years, watching and paying a little bit more attention to Eric Amarello, um, I have started to maybe change my mind a little bit. And this particular the 43 car, to me, it's become a car that's been more and more consistent about being towards the front of the field, maybe top 10 to 15 ish. I don't know, maybe 8 to 15. A little bit more consistent, and I don't know. I feel that we're starting to see, maybe this team coming around. Do I see them as a championship contender? No, but do I see them as maybe more of a regular chase appearance instead of just getting in because you got lucky and won a race kind of ordeal? Yes, I feel more confident that this team will find itself in victory lane because they earned it, not just because they happened to win a rain-shortened Coke 0400, like Eric Amarilla did when he got in the chase a couple years ago. What is the atmosphere? Was they dead on when they was talking about the family atmosphere and that being one of the most family atmosphere teams that since you've been around so many teams, what is that like over there? And are you starting to see maybe a little better performance and consistency when it comes to at least the 43 car, right? As of course the 44 car is still kind of finding its own way.
Yeah, I'm the same way about Eric Almirola. I've always considered him a driver that's either in the hunt or out of the hunt. There really hadn't been any consistency for him before now.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're running good, and each week that they run good, their confidence level grows. And that contributes a lot as to how the team performs the next week.
And I agree, and and I like how they threw out the fact that Smithfield is kind of a whole family or company as well, and they're sticking by Richard Motorsports, and I thought it was just real cool because most of the race we sit there and we listen to about Rick Hendrick and all four of those stables, especially now with Jeff Gordon in there. And I think Jeff Gordon does a good job of not trying to throw down, shove Hendrick Motorsports down our throat. I think he does a great job with that. But, we're used to just them talking about Penske and talking about Joe Gibbs Racing and talking about Stuart Haas Racing. And, it was just a great moment for me anyway to be able to just kind of sit back and let them talk about a different team for a minute in a positive direction, and kind of let you remember, kind of gave me an opportunity to kind of reminisce some of the days of the old 43 STP car out there, and kind of, I guess kind of focus in a little bit on, that 43 car has been more consistently up front. That organization does, Eric Amarello might not ever win them a championship, but I can see Eric Amarello putting them in victory lane, and we see that 43 a little bit more regularly into victory lane. And so I don't know. To me, it was just a cool opportunity to just kind of get away from the normal for a minute and kind of spotlight on something else for a minute. And so I don't know. It was just different, and I enjoyed it. Obviously, the rookies out there got a lot of talk again this weekend as Chase Elliott top 10 finish, Ryan Blaney top 10ish with an 8 and 10. You brought up an interesting thing when we talked about this a week or two ago, in the fact that I guess more or less I got out of it. You're impressed by what they're doing, but to a certain extent because of the rides that they've been given. In years prior, especially farther back, the rookies didn't always come out and be able to drive for Hendrick Motorsport and essentially drive for Penske Motorsports. They kind of had their work their way, and build their resume before these top tier teams would give them an opportunity in their car. And I thought about it more, and I like that because you got drivers out there like Chris Buescher that's are trying as hard as they can in a welly underfunded situation compared to what Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney are getting the opportunity to, and of course the materials and the product that he's in is he's getting the best results. He's running a clean race, and he's trying to stay out of trouble. Just the cars are not up to speed. Um, no, I was curious, and I was going to bring this up when we talked about it the first time. When we talk about Rookie of the Year, and we have the end of the year board awards handed out. When we talk about Rookie of the Year, should that be something that maybe is not so much point based, but maybe have a board of voters or something that determines your Rookie of the Year, so that those kind of things can be taken in consideration? Because we can have Chase Elliott finish, I don't know, 15th in points. We can have Ryan Blaney finish 16th in points, and we can have Chris Buescher finish 30th in points. But talent-wise and over all the adversities, which should make him the top rookie, could be Chris Buescher just because of the equipment and stuff. Should that something that NASCAR should take into consideration when you decide who was the best rookie of the year or best rookie of that class?
I don't know how they score the Rookie of the Year now. It used to be that they took your best 30 races and your best finish, and that's what they counted. They, give you 6 throwaways. So I don't know if that's still the case or not, but they're called rookies for a reason. It doesn't matter if you're 25 years old and you've been driving race cars since you were 5. You still got to learn how to race not only Cup cars, but Cup drivers. So even though you might have 20 years experience racing, you've still got to learn the tracks and how they work with a Cup car and how the other drivers race. So, it's a learning curve for all the rookies and everything, and it's pretty much boils down to who adapts the best and who's got the best equipment. If you switch cars, if Chase Elliott and Chris Buescher switched cars, I don't think Chase Elliott would have the runs that he's had. I don't think he'd do as good as he's doing. And I think Chris Buescher would be turning heads. So it's as much the car as it is the driver when you're a rookie, and Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney have got the total package. They're looking like the top 2 rookies right now.
I had something in my head I was going to say, and I got into what you were saying, and then I totally lost what I was about to say. Holy crap.
Sucks when your mind draws a blank, huh?
Oh, I remember now. Now I look down. 39 drivers, and I remember that the first time we had a 39 field, there was a lot of people with their concerns because once we fielded 43 cars, now we're not even fielding the full 40. And I guess my question to you at this point is, with the races that we have seen this year and the competition and the finishes that we've gotten to see, should there be any concern or really discussion that they're not even filling out a full 40-car field at this point? To me, I'm looking at it as, okay, we once had 43 cars, and they weren't the most competitive cars out there. And I'm not going to blame those 3 cars, 3 more cars, well, actually 4 more cars, this would have been this weekend, to the lack of finishes that we've seen prior to this year. But I think it also helps eliminate some of the distraction and, well, wow, they just got cars out there that just ain't up to speed, and they're just too, So I'm not saying the smaller field has made the race better by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it takes out some of the clutter that was unnecessary before this season. And so, to me, having 39 cars, even though they're not even making a full 40, is really not a concern, because what we're getting now is the 39 most competitive drivers that we can get versus just fielding 43 cars so we can say we can field 43 cars. Should there be any concern with the fact that even with the field reduction, now we're not even fielding the full field? Or is this just a product that the teams are putting out the best possible product they can, and if it's 39 versus just filling the field, then NASCAR and the fans should be happy with it.
I don't see where the car count in the field has affected the ability to get into the race so much now with the way the qualifying procedure is set up. The thing I don't like about it is, if the top 36 in points are guaranteed a spot, so, Brad Solowski has a bad run or bad qualifying effort or blows a tire or something like that, he's still going to be in the race. Maybe with a backup car starting at the rear, but he's still going to make the race. And I think that should be eliminated. I think you should have to race into the field by qualifying good instead of being a guaranteed spot if you're at 36. The lack of the last four cars, it just eliminates the starting parks. It's four less drivers that Brad Keselowski has got to worry about lapping, because those four back markers aren't going to be charging to the front. So I like that. I like the elimination of the starting parks.
Now, right before, last practice, we saw Jimmy Johnson have an issue. And it seems that the steering wheel wasn't locked down or put together, fastened, or whatever the case may be. What exactly happened inside that car, and at whose fault? Who didn't go over the checklist before practice started?
Well, it's left up to the driver, and some things like making sure your steering wheel's on and making sure your front wheels are straight and making sure your belts are tight. I mean, this is stuff that's on the driver, not anybody else, and it becomes so very routine. Jimmy might not have checked to make sure his wheel was locked on. Usually they put the steering wheel on the steering shaft, and they have a piece of tape at 12 o'clock that tells them they're straight ahead. But you put the steering wheel on the shaft, and then you reach behind it and bang it with your hand a couple of times to make sure it's locked on. And I think, Jimmy just forgot about it. And what you end up with is getting to the end of the straightaway and starting to turn, and the steering wheel's off in your hands.
I couldn't imagine traveling those speeds or traveling any speed, really. I couldn't even imagine coming out of the driveway and going to make a right-hand turn and the steering wheel just come off. So I couldn't imagine being on the racetrack and it happened, because that's got to be a scary situation.
Yeah, I'm sure Jimmy's butt pinched the plug out of the seat if that happened, because that's borderline terrifying to know you have lost control. I'm sure I bet you the rest of the season Jimmy will make sure that steering wheel's locked on.
Most definitely. I can't remember if it was the end of last week's show or if it was on Racing with Sweat that you asked who I was going with this weekend, and I went with Stewart Haas Racing. Obviously, Kevin Harvick very, very successful with this track. I want to say 6 of the last 8, 7 of the last 8, something like that, with a second place finish in there. Something crazy statistic with Kevin Harvick. Just been phenomenal with this track. And I didn't want to throw out Kurt Busch, which I got a first and a sixth on that. But Stewart Haas Racing. But this was a different Kevin Harvick this weekend, as he didn't dominate as much, even though he led 139 laps. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the runaway Kevin Harvick. He never really ran away from Carl Edwards, and especially that Joe Gibbs Racing team, and obviously coming down to the closest finish in Phoenix history in the Sprint Cup Series. Obviously proved that. Is this a product of the new downforce package, or a combination of the downforce package and the other teams catching up, or is it just simply the other teams are tired of watching Kevin Harvick dominate this track every single time they come, and efforts have got a little bit more stronger with all these teams to kind of eliminate Kevin Harvick from this being 2 races pretty much a year that he's guaranteed to win?
Yeah, I think a lot of the credit goes to Rodney Childers and the team for giving him a consistently good car to race. Listening to the radio chatter yesterday, Kevin complained all race long about being tight in the middle, tight in the middle, tight in the middle. And they finally got him freed up enough. If you watch Kevin, a lot of the laps, he would get to the middle of the corner and he would drop his left front tire below the yellow line and keep the right front tire up above the yellow line.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's only a little banking, it's enough banking to load the right front tire. To load the left front tire and unload the right front tire, which loosens the car up. So he's doing everything he can, and the crew's doing everything they can to make the car better, and I think their hard work all day paid off toward the end. The one thing about it is when you're constantly tight, and you're constantly tight, and you're constantly adjusting your driving style and everything to help combat that. Excuse me. The problem at Phoenix is, even with the length of the backstretch, with the dog leg in it, the driver hits that button to change to raise or lower the track bar, which you don't do in the corner. You do it on the straightaway, but by the time you get to the next corner at Phoenix, you've only had enough time to move the track bar a quarter or 3/8 of an inch.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up maybe having to move it 3 consecutive laps in a row to get it where you want it, but it changes the feel of the car every time you move it. So I think that was a problem too. They just, he just didn't have enough time to get the track bar where he wanted it and not lose much time to the leader.
Outside of maybe Jimmy Johnson at Charlotte, there for the longest time, it seemed that Jimmy Johnson found himself, once upon a time it was his house. And it seemed like Jimmy Johnson could never lose at Lowe's Motor Speedway. Outside of maybe that, have you experienced another driver other than Jimmy Johnson and now Harvick at a particular track that has been so dominant for so long?
No, the only person I can think of is Carl Edwards, who runs very well on the concrete tracks. How he got the name Concrete Carl. He's pretty much, going in that he's going to be the one you have to beat, one of the ones you have to beat at Dover or at Bristol. When they're running on concrete, you kind of, in the back of your mind, I'm going to have to race Carl Edwards all day, and I think that's the way it is with Harvick and Phoenix and Jimmy Johnson at Charlotte or Dover. But it motivates you as a driver and as a team. You really want to beat them because they're at the top of their game at that track. So you want to take a win away from them there, and it probably gives you more self-satisfaction to do that than it would to outrun Kevin Harvick at an idiot track or something.
Now, during the race, I want to say it was Casey Kane that ended up having, I think, a hose issue, and then ended up having to unattach it to his helmet, which was flopping around. You've had the opportunity to crew chief some of the most talented drivers, and you've been around a lot of race car drivers. How routine are drivers? Like, how much of a distraction is it? And I know DW and Jeff Gordon talked about it a little bit during the coverage, but how much of a distraction is it when even the smallest of things is out of the ordinary for a driver? How much of that does that bother them, or how much does that take away from their 100% focused on what they should be focusing on?
It's part of the deal. It's part of racing. The spotter's telling you if you've got something dragging or something of that nature. If it's on the front, you can usually hear it inside the car, so you know. But you make a decision as to whether it's affecting your car or whether it's going to affect how you run, and you just make the decision, go on with it. You don't forget about it, but you put the problem out of your mind. You go back to concentrating on the race you're running and how you can get to the front. So it's not that much of a distraction really to the driver. It's just something else that he's aware of.
But when it's the hose that I think they were talking about, though, was the one that went to his helmet. He was having something wrong with it. It was so late in the race that they talked about he shouldn't have any problem with not having that airflow going to him. And they were talking about it was possibly hitting his helmet. And if that's the case, can a driver at those speeds and having something kind of just ticking at their helmet, can they really put that in the back of their mind, or is that something that's really going to aggravate them?
Well, you put it away once you figure out or once you know what the problem is. So it's, I don't think it's that big of a distraction really, but it's just something else you have to deal with during the race. With a full face helmet, unless you raise the visor up some, there's no airflow inside that helmet. So your head does get hot, and that affects the rest of the body. So, like I said, it's something you're conscious of or aware of, but not something big enough to make you pit to fix it.
Oh, yeah.
With the backstretch being as long as it is at Phoenix, I think it was something that he could repair. Excuse me. That he could repair under caution.
Gotcha.
After pit stop, he could reach up, find that hose, and plug it back into the top of his helmet, but at race speeds, no way. And you need two hands on the wheel anyway at race speed.
I don't know, just one of those things I'm visualized when you're talking about trying to ignore it and talking about it cutting off your airflow. So I'm kind of visualizing sitting in traffic and maybe Greensboro on I-40 or I-73, I guess, back when it used to be only two lanes and all that traffic you'd have to sit in 100-degree weather in North Carolina, going in between Greensboro and Winston-Salem, and then having a kid sitting there in the back seat, reaching up and kind of just touching your seat, saying, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" And even though it's not touching you, I just can imagine how that just got to constantly play on your mind. I don't know. It would just bug the crap out of me. I don't know. It's just the way I am. Bill Gibbs Racing, obviously picking up where they left off last year. Another strong finish, 2, 3, 4, and 7th. Should teams be already fearing with this Joe Gibbs Racing now, especially with the addition of the affiliation with Martin Truex Jr., who was a serious threat last year to winning the championship, now being part of that whole organization. Should the rest of these teams be fearing what this basically five team roster is about to brew up on the 2016 season, because they're awful strong already.
Yeah, they are. They're, definitely, I would say, the top team in NASCAR right now by their qualifying and by how they finish in the races. And they're not going to get worse. They're only going to keep improving. They've run on the short track. They've run on intermediate tracks. They've run at Daytona. So they've got a pretty good idea of how they're doing, and they just fine-tune it for each race. I mean, they're going to be tough to beat all year long. And no surprise to me if a Joe Gibbs Racing car wins the whole thing, wins the whole shebang and picks up the championship trophy. I don't see much problem with what's going on over there as far as the rest of the season goes. Like I said, I think they're just going to get better and better. They've even pretty much got consistency dialed in at a good level now. So there's not much downside to what they're doing, and like I said, I think they're going to be teams to beat for quite a while.
Now, we saw the beginning of the race. I want to say it was Kyle Busch that shot out like a cannon, and it looked like it was orchestrated. And we kind of was under the impression that's what we were going to see every restart, like we did in one of the other races. But we didn't end up seeing that after the first start. Was it something that do you think that was orchestrated and they just wanted to get the everything single file to start out the race, or do you think that Kyle Busch just had that strong of a jump on the start?
Kyle Busch had that much of a jump. He is he's considered, the top guy on restarts in Cup racing. He's really good at it, like Ron Hornaday was throughout his career. He's worked on it. He concentrates on it. And the one thing people don't realize, the spotter plays a very important part on the restarts.
Mm-hmm.
And having a good spotter is something else that'll get you out of front ahead of the other guys. He's just tough to beat on a restart. The only thing I think might have affected him was the track rubbering up, but it seemed like everybody pretty much went to the outside lane if they were the leader on restart. So just, give the credit to Kyle Busch. He's that good.
Now, we've seen Ty Dillon step into the number 14 car, and I'm not going to say be great, but jumping into the 14 car, something unexpected, and to have, I guess, the consistent runs he has had so far, and especially yesterday, starting 28th and finishing 15th, I guess there should be some, I don't know, I guess optimism on what Ty can do given an opportunity. What are your thoughts on how he has handled his opportunity so far in the 14 car, and what should Richard Childress Racing obviously take out of this, as eventually he's obviously going to make his way into a full-time ride over there at RCR?
Well, RCR's got to be happy because he's getting
Free.
more and more Cup seat time.
Yeah.
So that's going to help him when he does move up. It'll give him a bit of an advantage. I think the big mistake Stewart Haas Racing is making is I saw a post today excuse me. I saw a post today where Brian Vickers is going to be back in the car at Auto Club Speedway, and I don't think that it's helping the situation any by switching drivers back and forth. It does, you got a long recovery period for Tony, so you know he's going to be out of the car a while. So why wouldn't you put one driver in the car, stick with that driver, give that driver and crew chief an opportunity to learn each other and to come together as a team, as opposed to working with Ty Dillon a couple of races and then putting Brian Vickers in for a couple of races. Just put somebody in and put there, have confidence in that driver. Don't think, well, he might not run as good at California as Brian would, so we're going to put Brian in for this race. It just doesn't develop any kind of continuity in the team, and I think the best thing to do would be put one driver in it, let him run all the races till Tony comes back.
Well, my thoughts on that, and this is why I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is why I thought that they were doing it the way they were doing it, was I didn't think that, I was under the assumption that Brian Vicker could only be off his medication or whatever his medication, he could only, do it so often or whatever. I don't know. But my initial thought was more the fact that I'm assuming that Ty Dillon, if you run so many races that you're eligible or you're now part of the Rookie of the Year run, and I was assuming that was part of why he limited what his races were so that he could be in a full season when he went for his Rookie of the Year opportunity. And because of Brian Vickers' medical, I thought that they were splitting the seat ride because Brian couldn't medically handle it all, and then that Ty didn't want to lose his eligibility for Rookie of the Year when he went for it. That's why I assumed this was how they were doing things. Now, I might be wrong on that, but because this is just me assuming. I never looked into it. I just what I thought. Is that a possibility, my logic of thinking, or is because I thought you can only compete in so many races before you're automatically considered in for the Rookie of the Year, and that has to be your Rookie Year.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that either. You are limited to the number of starts you can make during the year in Cup before you lose eligibility for Rookie of the Year. So that might play into it, but I really don't think so because, what's more important? Having Rookie of the Year on your resume and picking up a small check for that accomplishment, or getting seat time and learning about Cup racing and everything? That would be the way I'd go. I'd say, well, forget the Rookie of the Year. Let's get racing and learning something. Brian Vickers, I don't know what NASCAR's situation is on the medications he takes. I do know that Pradaxa that you take as a blood center has been recalled, and there's a lot of lawsuits going on about it, about the side effects and everything. So that might concern NASCAR, and it might concern Brian Vickers. And that might be a reason why he's not running all the races. I didn't think about that. It's a good point.
Yes, that's what I naturally assume, and I also just assumed that I assumed that RCR had some rides set up for Ty as well this year. And I agree, to me, if I have an opportunity, especially if I'm Ty or especially RCR, and I know that I can get him in another ride, and it's not coming out of RCR pockets, that I would take advantage of it. But I know that it seems as of the trend as of the last handful of years, that what a lot of drivers do is run the maximum races they can leading up to the rookie season, and then getting a full run in the rookie season and get an opportunity to have Rookie of the Year honors. And and compete for a full season. And and like I said, I agree with you that I would take the seat time, especially in another team that is kind of at the same. I don't know, maybe even a little bit better than you. I think Stewart Haas is above RCR, but I don't know where that 14 team is compared to RCR. Obviously, the 41 and 4 are well above RCR, but that 10 and 14 team, they're kind of struggling still. So,
Yeah.
but I agree with you 100%. I would just take an opportunity to all the possible seat time I can. If I don't win Rookie of the Year, I don't win Rookie of the Year. At first, my first thought was, why not? If you already know that the best pro is going to be a fit because of Ty Dillon, and you know that there's a possibility that Tony Stewart's going to miss a good portion of this year. My thought was at first, before I sat there and thought about, okay, maybe he knows that he's not going to. There's a possibility he's not going to get a full year, so he can't win Rookie of the Year. Brian Vickers, his health might not allow him to run full of the year, so there's a chance there's not going to be a championship, and this is why they're doing it. But my first thought was, okay, this is your opportunity to tie to, I know Tony Stewart has all plans of coming back, but if you step in this car from day one and you find yourself in the chase, I don't see Tony Stewart kicking a car out of the chase just to come back on his farewell tour. I see Tony Stewart just taking the season off and making 2017 potentially his farewell tour, and have to figure out what they're going to do with Clint Boyer later, or open it up, figure out something. But that was my first thought, was why not give it a chance to win a championship? And that was kind of, where I was thinking about, or thinking at it is, okay, I know Tony Stewart wants to come back, but with the medical issues, and I know that the Tim Ward stuff still has got to be haunting him, and we kind of seen his performance kind of say that's the situation. If you see Ty put your car in an opportunity to be in the chase, then as a smart man and a businessman that he claims to be, while we watch him shift from Chevrolet to Ford, money in business sense wise, if you can get one driver and they're going to be in the chase, and only thing you're going to do is compete in a couple races or half the season, whatever the case may be, and you're missing out on an opportunity, I can't see Tony Stewart pass that up. And that was what my first initial head scratching was, just find one driver and see what happens, then go from there. But obviously, with him already knowing that he wants to be back in that car, and Ty knowing that, and Brian knowing that, I'm sure that I guess that was the best way to fit everybody's, I don't know, I guess agenda. But I agree with you. I'd want that seat time.
Yeah, nothing beats for drivers seat time. Seat time at a certain track gives you an opportunity to learn that track, how the conditions change. And, for most of these tracks, like Phoenix, you've started a notebook you can draw back from the next time you come to that track. So it's a good thing for Ty Dillon. I just wonder what's going to happen when Tony does come back. Like you said, is he going to take the other drivers out of the car and drive himself? And for a season like Kyle Busch had last year to make it into the chase? Or do you want your car in the chase with your sponsor's name on it?
Yeah.
For the added publicity and everything for the sponsor. So, I don't know. I think, even though it's his supposedly farewell season, Tony might swallow his pride. The good of SHR and his sponsors, and might not come back, might just go ahead and call it quits.
I mean, that's the way I was. Just like my show, the 110 Nation Sports Show is my show, but if something happened and I lost my voice and couldn't speak for, a few weeks, and someone came in and stepped up and stepped into my shoes and took the show to a level, that is the best in our field, then I'd suck up my pride, and I would continue doing all the other shows that I do, and the producing, or producing the shows and everything else. To me, Tony Stewart just seems like a very business-run kind of guy. Yes, there's a lot of mouth to him, and there's a lot of opinion, but where he started and where he's at now overall, not just Stuart Haas Racing, but as a person, that all points that if I was him, that would have been my thoughts. I mean, look, let me find one driver. Let me see if I can get Ty Dillon. I will put him in this ride. And I know this is just a 1 year because Ty's got his stuff going on where he's going and RCR and everything else. But I will get one driver, put him in the car, and if by the time I am ready, this car is in contention to be in the chase, and my sponsors are happy, and now that they're going to get that visibility and everything is fine and everybody's happy with it, then I am just going to I'm going to stay retired at this point. But, if not, then, I will step in and I will do my farewell tour. And even so, I think you can, I know you used to be able to add like a fifth car, and I know they can reach out, especially since there's only 39 cars running. You can always add, a fifth car for, a few races or whatever, or pilot another team's race and, team, and it still be their team, but your product and him being in those cars, if it's that important to him to finish at least 15 in a few races this year before it's out as his quote-unquote farewell tour. But me, that's what I would have done. I would have put myself in an opportunity to have all four cars eligible to be in the chase and went with that route first, and then play my cards as they lay in front of me after that.
Yeah, Tony's going to be faced with a big decision. I think a lot of it will hinge on how many races he misses, how long he's out, as to how he handles the rest of the year. And I know he'd want to go through the farewell tour and everything just to be recognized, but what does it boil down to? What's more important to you? And I think also at Tony's age, drivers get that old, get up in the years toward the end of their career, and they're not going to take as many chances as they did when they were younger because they don't want to be involved in a wreck where they might get injured or something. I'm not saying they get scared, they just get more cautious. And I'm sure that plays into it too. So, and Tony's track record has not been very good since he broke his leg in that sprint car. A lot of it's been because of personal issues and injuries and stuff, but you can't deny the smoke that's racing today when he's healthy is the same as the one that was winning championships and winning a lot more races. So I don't know. I don't know how he's going to handle that. It'll be interesting to see.
Most definitely. Just glad to see that they gave an update on him and during the race, and that everything's looking good. There's still no timetable on his return, so. But glad back at the track, and he's been back at the track, but it's becoming a routine thing to be back at the track, and it's just good to see that things are starting to get back to normal, and we'll see what decisions are made when they're made. But this weekend coming up, Auto Club. Should we expect another weekend like we have seen so far in the last 3 weeks of racing with this downforce package?
Absolutely. With the low downforce package, they shortened the spoiler, put a smaller rear spoiler on the cars, and they pretty much eliminated the splitter on the front. But at AutoZone, with that track as rough and as bumpy as it is, having downforce definitely helps you keep the car planted. And with less downforce now, teams are going to have to concentrate on using something else to keep the car from porpoising over the humps, especially on the backstretch. So they're going to have to do something mechanical, and that's going to affect, everything in the setup to get that right. So I think it's going to be a great race. They've had good races there in the last couple years, and I'm looking for the race this weekend to be even better than it has been.
Definitely excited about it. Definitely looking forward to it. Like I said, I want to say it was last week, but one of the shows anyway, that this new downforce package has me wanting to watch tracks that I've not really cared to watch before. I'll sit down and watch Charlotte, but Charlotte's not one of my favorite tracks to watch. And California, Sonoma is not one of my favorite tracks to watch. And traditionally, as many times I've been to Atlanta, normally it's not one of the ones I really care to watch. I'll watch them, but it's, to me, I want my Daytona and my Talladega and my Bristol, my Martinsville, and my Watkins Glen. And those mile and a half, most of them, they're just hit and miss on which ones I enjoy to watch and which ones, if I take a nap or if I miss part of the coverage, I'm not going to lose any sleep over. This new downforce package, I don't want to miss anything, because you have no idea what's going to happen if you happen to step away from the TV. And it's definitely made this season for me so far so much more enjoyable. Not that I have not enjoyed NASCAR, but even more enjoyable, and making every race for me a must-watch to the entirety. On top of that, and this is the first time that I think that I've been this excited so far into a season, as excited as I have been.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm watching races now to judge how this new low downforce package is working at each track. And what I've seen so far, it's been great. You mentioned Charlotte last year. I forget who was leading, but Kevin Harvick said, he could run down the leader, but he couldn't pass him because of aero more than anything else. And I'm glad to see that eliminated. I'm glad to see more drivers being able to actually race and drive their cars to keep their car, up in the front or wherever they're running at. So to me, it's definitely helped, and I watch every race now with renewed interest just to see how that package works at that track.
Definitely so. Definitely looking forward to it. As always, Steve, love doing this. Love talking racing with you. Definitely looking towards Thursday nights, racing with Big Sweat, 9 p.m. right here on the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network. Let them know about the group and what goes on to the group, and what they need to look out for over there.
Let me touch on one thing we didn't cover that I think is very important. NASCAR has got to do something about the Xfinity Series. It's really a big divide between the Cup drivers that run in it with their teams and the other Xfinity drivers. I wonder if NASCAR's had a word with Kyle Busch. He stunk up the show at Vegas, leading all but one lap, and he pretty much stunk up the show at Phoenix, too, because he was so dominant. And I think NASCAR needs to address that and come up with some way to try to get the Xfinity Series drivers more equal to the Cup drivers that are stepping in to run those races. I don't want to see something like, limiting the number of starts you can make or where you start or anything that limits the Cup drivers racing, but they've got to do something. They've got to get it more equal, or it's going to fail. People are just going to lose complete interest in that series, and I'd hate to see that happen.
this is my suggestion on it. This is what I've been with for a few years, and you give me your thoughts on this. If this is something even feasible, because you understand the financial side of it a little bit better, or probably a lot better than I do. But my solution to this is, one, I've never been a big fan of the Sprint Cup guys running on Saturdays. I'm sorry, but to me, it's like Tom Brady of the New England Patriots going back and playing for his Michigan Wolverines on Saturday. It's just kind of unfair. But I will say this. If they do it, I want them to have race for their own teams. Therefore, they are investing back into the Xfinity Series. That means that there is money going back into there, there's sponsorship going back in there, and the fans are still getting an opportunity to see their favorite Sprint Cup drivers be out there on Saturday. But it evens the play field that now a young driver that is up and coming and needed that attention or deserving of an opportunity, as such as over at Penske Racing or Joe Gibbs Racing, they will be able to be out there as well, and nothing is lost. So therefore, there's not. It's, to me, it's one thing to see Joe Gibbs Racing, Roush Racing, Penske Racing kind of be a little bit ahead of the game just because of their financial situation. But when you add a Sprint Cup driver into that car as well, now you're kind of making it unfair to the rest of the field. But if you at least eliminate the driver, make them run their own race team, that way they're investing back into the sport. It also gives an opportunity to Xfinity to have more sponsorship come into the sport, because now these sponsors are banking on, okay, at least Kyle Busch is either guy he's going to have his team out there, or he's going to be out there. Same with Joey Logano, same with Brad Keselowski. And that is my solution to it. One, it gives us a full field of competitive cars, because now the guys that are not making the field on a regular basis because they don't have no rides, now they're going to be there. Now those Sprint Cup guys who want the opportunity to race Saturday, want an opportunity to fill that trophy case, pad the resume, and to get the extra experience for that Sunday race, now they're going to be out there as well. Just now they're going to invest into, essentially into their company, their race team, and to make that field a more competitive field, on top of giving everybody the opportunity they deserve. Is that even feasible? Do the drivers make enough? Because I know Kyle Busch got his own team, Brad Keselowski's got his own team. I don't know all the drivers that have their own team, but with the expense of the cost to be out there in the Xfinity Series race, and we see a lot of young teams out there and small time, looking for sponsors, so we know that it's financially possible. Is this something that is feasible and something that NASCAR should look at?
Well, there's definitely a big divide between being a smaller Xfinity Series team to draw enough sponsorship to run against the Cup guys and their teams that are running on Saturdays. It's just, Dale Jr. has all of his Xfinity Series cars sponsored well.
Mm-hmm.
The reason he gets that much more money is because he's Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Mm-hmm.
It'll draw more attention to the sponsors, so he can tell, like Tax Slayer, I'll run 7, 8, 10 races in the car, and then I'm going to put somebody else in the car, and sponsors will go for that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's made Kyle Busch so good over the years is, on a triple threat weekend, he'd run the truck race, learn something, take what he's learned, use it the next day in the Xfinity race,
mm-hmm.
learn some more, and then on Sunday in the Cup race, he's already got a better notebook than the other drivers do, so it's going to help him run better up front. It's just, all of that is mostly mental to the drivers, and it certainly doesn't put asses in the seat on Saturday. The fans aren't interested in what Kyle Busch earns. They want to see drivers win, and they want to see, I'm sure fans of the Xfinity Series want to see Xfinity drivers win races, but I just haven't come up with any kind of solution on how they could do this without hurting either the Xfinity Series or the Cup drivers that want that extra race to learn something and want to run those races so they can get sponsorship. I don't know what NASCAR's going to do, but they definitely need to do something, or the series is going to die. Right now, there's just not a lot of interest in it from the fans.
I don't know. Definitely agree. I mean, it doesn't make no sense to me, and they like I said, they got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, Dale Earnhardt used to run a bunch of the Busch Grand National races on Saturday, and I'm sure he learned stuff from it, but he didn't dominate, like Kyle Busch does or some of the other Cup drivers do. And like you said, he was driving for his own team, not for a Richard Childress racing car. So,
like I said, if that's what I want to see. If a driver is going to be out there, a Sprint Cup driver, I want him to be out there in his own team. That kind of evens out the play field. Obviously, the smaller teams still are kind of at a disadvantage, but it kind of evens out the competition a little bit. And so not only are you going to have Joe Gibbs Racing, Penske, Roush Fenway, Junior Nation, but then also you're going to have Kyle Busch Racing, Brad Keselowski Racing, and anybody else that wants to form their team to be in the races that they're going to be raced, and also give an opportunity, make it a full thing. Invest back into the sport that has made you millions of dollars, and provide opportunities for young and up-and-coming drivers, the races you're not going to run, and put them in the car. And I feel that only will help grow the sport, because not only are you opening up ride opportunities and you're bringing in sponsorship because you're Kyle Busch or you're Joey Logano or you're Brad Keselowski or you're Dale Jr., but now you got these drivers that, one, wasn't going to have the opportunity because those rides weren't going to be available before, but now you got drivers now they're going to have another goal, because you're going to have Tommy out there that, oh my God, if I do what I got to do and I learn what I got to learn, I could be driving for Kyle Busch Racing, or I could be, and it's when you have stars and those that are champions in your sport, and you get an opportunity to drive for them now. I mean, to me, it's almost like driving. For me, it would be like driving for Richard Petty. He might not have been my favorite driver, but that was a champion when I was growing up. And yeah, as nice it would be to drive for Rick Hendrick and the history it had, or an opportunity to run for Penske because it's history in auto racing. A lot of these drivers, their favorite driver and their idol is those that are driving Sunday now, not who drove Sunday before. And I just think that for the economics of this sport, and more specifically that series, that would be a very big boost, not only in sponsorship, but opportunities, people in the seats, fans in the seats, because now you're getting to see the young and talented drivers get their opportunity, plus you got your regulars out there, and they're investing back into the sport, and gives the fans a reason to want to support these teams, because you're doing the sports the right way and you're investing back into the sport. I would rather invest into somebody that's investing into making the sport better, versus worrying about investing in somebody that's just getting the most out of the sport.
Yeah, Dale Jr. has to run a handful of Xfinity races to satisfy his sponsor commitments, but I pretty much guarantee you he doesn't want to do that. I think he wants to be like Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson and only concentrate on one race a weekend instead of having to divide his time and divide his concentration between two different cars. But he's got to do it to maintain the sponsorship that he's got. So, he's going to be there. You might as well accept it.
Oh, yeah.
the thing about the drivers driving for his own team and performance-wise, that would make a difference. You look at Kyle Busch, and he's not stepping down from driving a Joe Gibbs car to driving his own team's car, because his own team is pretty much just as good drawing and sharing information with Joe Gibbs Racing, so there's not really any fall off there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, NASCAR's got to do something.
Most definitely agree. NASCAR and other racing. Go ahead and plug your group real quick, and let's get things. Unfortunately, I can sit here talking all day long, but I got another show in 30 minutes to get ready for.
Yeah. Folks, if you're not a member, come join my group, NASCAR and Other Racing. It's become a real good group. We cover all types of racing. Dirt cars, asphalt cars, sprint cars, whatever, whatever's happening, we're going to talk about it. Any race that's televised, be it Cup, NHRA, Formula One, IndyCar, we run group race threads where the group members will come on and watch the race and be on line with other members of the group who are on the thread, and we talk back and forth, ask questions, cheer on our favorite driver. So it's a good way to spend the race, and you're not missing any of the race. So come join us and hang out on the thread with us. Right now for Thursday night, I've got a sprint car driver and a super late model asphalt driver already lined up. And I'm looking for one more, but we try to offer a variety of drivers, especially from in our group, to keep that interesting. So in the group, keep up with what's going on, and tune in to Ring with Big Sweat on Thursday nights from 9 o'clock to ever how long it takes, so we can talk local short track racing with these drivers. And I think you'll find that both of them will be a very interesting experience.
Definitely looking forward to it. Definitely love being part of the group. I am also part of the group, so make sure you guys go over there and check out that group. It's always a great time, always great race threads, and always look forward to it. I usually spend the first part of my day on Sunday. The truth be told, I have to DVR the races. I get most of my hours on the weekends, and this weekend really messed with me with the whole daylight savings, just for the fact of, one, I only slept like 2 hours. With the shows going on Friday, I have a real hard time going to bed before 1, 2 o'clock anyway. And so when I work open on Saturday and Sunday, it means I got to be up at 4:30 in the morning. So that was kind of what happened on Friday night, Saturday morning. And so then I got my son after I got off Saturday about 3 o'clock, 5 to 3. And so I laid down at 10 o'clock. Well, the dilemma was, and what made things difficult for me Saturday night / Sunday morning, was cell phones are supposed to adjust their times when the daylight savings, and from past experience, it doesn't always go as planned, and sometimes it doesn't change right then, sometimes it changes later in the day, sometimes you end up having to manually override it, whatever the case may be. And then on top of that, since I've recently located about 2 weeks ago, I had to buy an alarm clock, because back in the day, I would have my alarm on my phone, and then Shorty would have her alarm on her phone on the other side of the bed, that way I wouldn't oversleep. Well, I bought an alarm clock for the other side of the bed. Well, it was an alarm clock as well that does its own time. I don't have to change the time. So here I am with the dilemma when I was laying down trying to go to sleep about 9:30, 10 o'clock, is do I set my alarm clock for what should now be 4:30, because I'm going to hope that both my clocks adjust their times correctly, or do I set it for 3:30, and just in case. So what I ended up doing is not sleeping very well because I was paranoid all night. Got up the first time a little bit after 3:30 to make sure that the times did change the way they were supposed to, and then got to lay back down it was about 4 o'clock when I lay back down and sleep for another 30 minutes. So I But my weekends are where I work about 20, 25 of my 40 hours, and so I always got to DVR the race, so I do use the group. Long story short, I end up using the group to hanging out with the group during the day early on to get my updates of the race as things unfold until I get home, and then I restart the race and watch it from beginning to end. I do get to see every race from beginning to end. I just don't always get to see it as it's happening, but long story short, make sure you guys join the group. Anyway, make sure you guys tune in. Make sure I don't even know why I went into all that story. Anyway, make sure you guys tune in Thursday night, racing with Big Sweat, 9 p.m. Looking forward to it. Look forward to hanging out in the studio with Steve. Definitely looking forward to recapping next weekend's race, Auto Club, next Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here, back at it again. Steve and myself. Until then, you guys have a great night, and thanks for tuning in.
Good night, folks.